we do have a sign-in sheet up here, so if you do choose to come to the podium and speak on either case, do make sure that you fill out your name and address legibly for the record. We're going to get started.
Right.
Yeah, he didn't say he wasn't.
You ready to go? I'll call the meeting to order. We have a few items of regular business, and then we have 2 public hearings and possible votes. I'll mention now, and I'll repeat when we get to the public hearing, this will be the only public hearing on both of these items. So if you wish to speak, you need to speak to us when those hearings are called. So we're going to go into the regular meeting right now, and the first item of business is the approval of minutes of the April 9th, 2018 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve.
So, second?
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? Call the roll, please.
Ransom Ellis,
Aye.
Shane Grooms,
Abstain.
Tony Mitchell,
Aye.
George North,
Aye.
Jeff Ressler,
Aye.
Ken Sawyer.
I don't remember if I was here or not. I think I missed one somewhere. If I was here, I say aye. Otherwise, I stay.
You were here for April?
Or was I here for April?
Yep.
Okay. I knew there was one month I missed.
By my count in my head, that motion carried. Okay, next item of business, approval of minutes of the May 14th, 2018 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Is there a motion? Motion. All right, Shane. Second?
Second.
George? Any discussion on the motion? Call the roll, please.
Ken Sawyer.
I think that's the one I missed, so I want to stay from.
Okay. Jeff Ressler,
Abstain.
George North,
Aye.
Tony Mitchell,
Aye.
Shane Grooms, Ransom
Aye.
Ellis.
By my count, that also passed. Next item of business is citizen participation. At this time that the commission invites anyone to come forward to speak to us about a matter that's not on the agenda, because if it's a part of the hearing, it needs to be made, those comments need to be made part of the public hearing. Does anyone wish to come forward and tell us what a great job we're doing or otherwise? Thank you. No old business, we'll move to new business. First item of business is RZN 18, this is public hearing, RZN 18-003, public hearing and possible vote to recommend the approval of an application to change the zoning classification of approximately 61.6 acres located at 3456 South Farm Road 101 from agricultural to general commercial C2. Who's going to speak on that? All right.
The property subject to the rezoning application is comprised of the 61.6 acres of land. It's currently used as agricultural land. It's more generally defined as the property located at the northwest intersection of U.S. Highway 61 Farm Road 103. As I indicated, it's currently being used as a hay or a farm field, and it does contain one agricultural structure. Upon the conclusion of the public hearing, we will go through a brief analysis of the present site conditions as well as the proposal's relationship to adopted plans of the city.
Okay. The way we'll do the public hearing is I'm going to ask first for those persons who are in favor of the project, in favor of the change, to come forward and tell us whatever they think we need to hear. Then when we're done with them, we'll go to the people that are not in favor of the project. So anyone in favor of this project who is here tonight that wishes to speak to us, please come forward.
I'm Larry McConnell, along with myself and Doug Tudor. We own the MT Farms, which owns this property. We think that this would be a big benefit to the city of Republic. We think that we can do some development there and possibly draw in some businesses and things that could be beneficial to the city. So we would appreciate your guys' vote to move forward with this.
Thank you.
Got to write my name.
Let the minutes show that Alan is here. We missed you. Thank you. Does anyone else in favor of the project wish to come forward and speak to it? Not seeing a big rush to the podium, I'm going to go to the folks that might not be in favor of the project, and anyone that's here that is not in favor of this project that wish to speak to us, please come forward. Can't sell that one either, I guess. All right. Not seeing anybody coming forward, I'm going to oh, got one. Just about to bang the gavel.
So, I guess my question would be, I have a couple.
Need your name. I'm sorry, we need
oh.
your name.
Christian Stack,
Thank
just
you.
like the religion. So, other than the apartments, I heard commercial developments. Are we talking like small businesses? Or are we just talking apartments? I mean, it's a big piece of land. Does anybody have an answer to that?
The request is to change the zoning from agricultural to commercial, C2. And C2, why don't you tell me what C2 is?
The general commercial zone would not permit any apartments. It would only permit commercial businesses.
Okay, so my understanding now is the entire piece of land is just going to be for businesses? No
Yes.
kind of housing?
That's correct. And just to be clear, there's another rezone later tonight that is residential in nature on Farmer 170.
Gotcha.
This is a rezone on the north side of US Highway 60 at the intersection of 103 and 60, just so make sure we're talking about the same piece of land.
I think I might be at the wrong one. I guess I was on.
All right. Thank you. There may have been others that were having the same question. Anyone else wish to speak on this issue? Not seeing anyone that wishes to come forward and speak, we're going to close that hearing. We'll move to the second public hearing, which is RZN 18-004. I'm sorry? I'm going to announce it, and then I'm going to let her do it. Is that all right? All right. RZN 18-004, public hearing and possible vote to recommend the approval. What? Oh, I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. I see what you're saying. We've changed our procedures a little bit. We're now going to talk about and question whether or not we recommend approval of the application on the first matter.
Yes, so this is for the rezoning request 18003 for Larry McConnell and MT Farms. And we do have a PowerPoint presentation to go along with the staff report. Make sure that everyone understands the different components of this particular project. So I'm going to go through them and try to flick through on my way and try not to get behind on this. So the first thing I want to discuss is the consistency with the comprehensive plan. This particular project has a 61.6 acre development area. The current zoning is agricultural. The future land use designation, or the FLUME designation, is Planned Business Park. And the described uses for this particular zoning designation or FLUME designation is for planned mixed-use commercial, office, retail, warehouse, and light manufacturing. So the city's comprehensive plan generally encourages the expansion of commercial development through proactive rezoning of land at appropriate locations. Appropriate locations are described generally throughout the plan with regard to the relationship of land at particular intersections to infrastructure capable of supporting various intensities and densities of uses. In the case of commercial zoning, the plan generally describes the intersection of arterial thoroughfares where commercial development may be clustered as being the most appropriate location for commercial zones. So the area designated by the hash right here is the subject parcel. So you can see right here is US Highway 60, here's South Farm Road 103, and then over here is South Farm Road 101. This is the railroad crossing over 60 right here, and then this is Burlington Northern Railroad right here. Here's the Magellan gas distribution station. The plan more particularly describes appropriate future land use map designations through the depiction of the future land use map. In the case of the future land use map adopted in 2005 as part of the land use plan, the planned business park, as I said, is large parcels with mixed-use commercial office, retail, warehouse, and light manufacturing. So the 2005 land use plan also identifies, and right here you can see also the future land use designation of this particular parcel, which is right here, and then also the surrounding parcels. The 2005 land use plan also identifies goals and objectives for commercial development. One of the goals that has been identified is the expansion of opportunity for new commercial development in the city, with the objective of increase the land available for commercial development in the city. And the policies of the commission and city council include the proactive consideration of rezoning requests for commercial development, the intersection of this type of development at major intersections, and then also the identification of development opportunity districts and activity zones. So the next map you can indicate right here again is that particular parcel, and with surrounding land uses. The green up here is all agricultural. It's just used as farmland. There's agricultural again over here, and there's a very small strip of M1 or light manufacturing right here on the other side of 103, and then also the property on the other side of the railroad right here is manufacturing. So the subject site is surrounded by agricultural zones to the north, Greene County commercial property to the east, and there's one corner of Greene County right here. This is where there's a small car lot and also a propane distribution station that's actually in the Greene County jurisdiction. The property to the west, as I said, is agricultural farmland, and then US Highway 60 to the south. The land uses permitted in the general commercial zoning district are indicated and also included in your packet. The size of the subject parcel for proposed commercial development, it'll be physically separated from the surrounding land uses both to the east, to the south, and to the west due to the roads that bisect this particular piece of property. And these are just a couple of pictures that we took recently. So this is a view from 101. This is close to the intersection of 101 and US Highway 60. You can see there is a agricultural barn right here and an old silo right here. There's a home located right here. Again, this is from the intersection of 103, kind of facing north on 103. Near the propane distribution. So this is looking directly into the field of the subject property right here. This is actually a picture at the same location, just facing the intersection of US Highway 60, which you can see a stop sign right here. And that's the intersection with 60. and this is on the opposite road, 101, and this is facing US Highway 60. There are high transmission power lines you can see right here. You can see those from the road that run up through this property. And one more, this is facing west. So these are the distribution tanks for Magellan on Brookline Avenue. So moving on to discussion and analysis. These items I did already go through, so we'll zoom past these. The capacity to serve potential development. This particular site is served by municipal water. We have a 10-inch water main parallel to US Highway 60, and it does currently have sufficient capacity to serve commercial development on the subject parcel. Moving on to the municipal sewer, the property does have sewer running through the property. There's a 12-inch gravity main, runs basically north and south through the property line. It does flow to Schuler Creek, which is on the other side of 60. It does currently have sufficient capacity at this moment to serve commercial development on the particular parcel. Moving on to transportation, the property is currently accessed via a deeded farm access point on each of the 3 roads. So there's one on US Highway 60, pretty far down US Highway 60, and then also one on South Farm Road 103 and 101. The city's adopted transportation plan, the major thoroughfare plan that's been adopted, the access management, and then transportation engineering best practices do require a transportation system improvements, including, and it's kind of cut off, but we have improved road access, improved turning and intersection improvements, and a secondary circulation system. Additionally, the current transportation intersection system is not adequate for potential commercial development of the particular property at this time. In order for the property to be adequately served for the permitted uses in the C2 zoning district, the city, the developer, MoDOT, or a combination of these parties must make the required capital improvements to these particular intersections. Currently, there are no funds programmed by the city or by MoDOT. Moving on to environmental review, there are no floodplain areas identified in this particular property, and it also does not contain any identified sinkholes. So alternatives to uses as presently zoned. Any activity or any land use identified in the AG or agricultural zoning district would be allowed on this particular property. Basically, farmland or a single family house. The agricultural intensity and density does not represent the highest or best use of the land at the present time. And extent to which proposed amendments creates nonconformities. The existing agricultural uses would be permitted to continue until such time as something is actually altered on the property or it's actually rezoned and development starts occurring. Trend of development in the vicinity. General trend is the gradual redevelopment existing commercial properties along US Highway 60. You've seen that in the last couple of years. And this trend is facilitated by the growth of traffic and population on US Highway 60, the growth of the City of Republic, and has created market conditions more favorable to additional commercial uses on this particular stretch of the highway. So as far as the staff recommendation is concerned, we have identified that the proposed zoning is consistent with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan. It is also consistent with the development that's been happening in the vicinity of the subject parcel. It's generally compatible with surrounding land uses. It is able to be adequately served by municipal water and sewer, but it is not adequately served by the current transportation system. And that concludes our presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Anyone have questions?
Does MoDOT have any idea how many accesses to 60 they will allow off that Freed Street?
That is a difficult question to answer. Our major thoroughfare plan and the plans have been adopted by the city and also by MoDOT. We don't want driveway access points or additional roads on Highway 60. So we'll be collaborating with MoDOT, possibly Greene County, in finding the best solution to the transportation issues at that intersection. Our primary goal is to make sure that the intersection improvements that we do require, that they provide adequate access and a safe intersection for the amount of traffic that potentially could come in and out of this particular parcel.
If I could just follow up on that real quick, I think the city's goal will be, whether it's through this rezone process or subdivision plating review, will be to restrict access. So the ideal situation is that these property will only be accessed by public streets that come off of US Highway 60. And the reason for that is US Highway 60 from at least MM, if not further west than that, all the way to the interchange with James River Freeway is designated as an expressway. The reason for that is that it is the city of Republic, not just Republic, but an entire region to the west of us. That is the primary way in and out of Springfield, where most of the job centers are located there along James River on the south side of Springfield. So we clog that up, and Republic's in trouble, but not just Republic, but a lot of communities west of Republic as well. So we're going to be very cautious about access management and about transportation planning along this corridor, which makes this particular rezone request, I'd say, one of the more consequential considerations this commission may have heard for a while, because what we're talking about here is what is now functioning as legitimate highway speeds, probably in excess of 60 miles per hour, will eventually become an expressway, more like 45 to 55 miles per hour, most likely. But the decisions we make between now and then are the ones that will dictate how well that functions and how well people can get in and out of where they need to get in and out of.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Motions?
I'll make a motion to recommend the approval of an application to change the zoning classification of 61.6 acres located at 3456 South Farm Road 101 from AG to general commercial C2.
Derek?
I'll second.
Yes, second. Any discussion on the motion? Call and roll.
Ransom Ellis,
Aye.
Alan Dixon,
Aye.
Shane Grooms, Tony Mitchell,
Aye.
George North,
Aye.
Jeff Ressler,
Aye.
Ken Sawyer.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Next item of business is second public hearing, RZN 18-004. Public hearing and possible vote to recommend the approval of an application to change the zoning classification of approximately 48.5 acres located at 7012 West Farm Road 170 from agricultural to high-density single-family residential R1H.
So Turner Residential Holdings LLC has applied for the zoning classification change of this particular 48.5 acres on West Farm Road 170. This property was recently annexed into the city back early in January, February 2018. Upon the conclusion of the public hearing, I will present a brief site analysis of present conditions on the particular parcel in relationship to the adopted plans of the city.
Before the hearing, could you just briefly describe the zoning district that's being asked for?
Yes. So the zoning district itself, Connie, could you go to the second PowerPoint? the RZN 18004, it's loaded. The zoning request itself is from agricultural, so AG, to residential, or high-density residential. The uses identified in the R1H zoning district, they are included in your packet, but I'll go through them just very quickly. The intent of the R1H high-density single-family residential district, it's designed for 7,000 square feet lots for single-family residences. So this is a slightly higher density than your more traditional R1M zoning district that you see around a lot around the city. It allows for approximately 6 dwelling units per acre. The zoning district itself, again, will allow those residential uses, so model homes, single-family dwellings, accessory units, accessory to the primary structure, so like a detached garage type situation, schools and churches, also golf and country clubs. The district itself does not allow for any type of multifamily housing, despite the connotation with that high density being in the text of the zoning district. It is only a higher density, single-family residential zoning district.
So it's not duplexes?
It is not.
Apartments?
Correct. It only will allow for
Triplex.
those single-family homes and accessory type uses in additions to schools and churches.
Thank you. Okay, let's try this again. In this public hearing, the first people I want to hear from are people who are in favor of this project. Anyone that's in favor of this project who wishes to speak to us, please come forward and tell us. Talk to us.
Hi, my name's Sean Turner, and I just brought kind of a preliminary idea of what we're going to do. We requested the R1H because there's 2 different lot sizes that we plan to do. There's the design we have now. There's 108 residential lots that are about 9,000 square feet. So the bulk of the property would be bigger lots, and then there's 40 lots in the front that's separated by a sewer easement that we plan to do some sort of senior housing community. So we didn't want to have 2 separate different zonings on one property. The R1H gives us flexibility to do either one. So here's this plat, and there's some pictures of the houses that we kind of plan on building.
Oh, that would be really good. We're trying to work some technical things here. Maybe we can put these pictures up on the screen if we're lucky. If we're not, we'll hold them up for you so you can see what the houses look like, and see what the exhibit is. And it's a good deal that I'm not in there trying to do it.
The subdivision to the west, it's already developed. Do we know what the lot sizes are there?
They are, yeah, they are R1M, so it would be up to 9,000 square feet an acre, or minimum 9,000 square feet an acre, or a lot. So that's roughly 1, 2, 4.
Just wanted to see if we were looking the same.
Tell us what that is, so.
That's just a sketch plat. And I think in the top right it shows there's 108 lots total, and 40 of them are 7,000 square feet. The rest are 9,000 plus. Like,
And the process of doing this is just a zoning change. The actual development of the project will come back to the commission for like looking at the plat. This isn't the plat, it's
just an idea.
an idea.
That's a subdivision that we currently are building in that we thought we'd kind of model this one after. It's called the Villages at Hillstone, and it's got kind of a farmy, urban, modern farm type vibe going on.
Same development?
Yeah. Yep.
Sitting on a comparably sized lot?
Those lots are actually a lot smaller than what we have designed here. These lots are much bigger.
elevation. Can you all see that? Okay.
There'll probably be $200,000 to $300,000 price range houses.
Great. Do you have anything else for
Nope.
us?
I'm done.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of the project? Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Glenn Stevens, the Stevens Company. I own a house in the adjoining subdivision called Old Town at Kerr Place. I'm also a builder. I built a few homes in that, and I still own one property.
Let's be upfront, you read it.
And I do rent it to a fabulous tenant. Old Town was designed basically for the same price range and same lots. So we have some good experience adjoining this. I came on to speak for Mr. Turner. I've done business with him on a variety of subdivisions as a broker, selling him lots and asking him plans of what he was going to do. He's a third-generation builder in this area. He does everything he says he's going to do. He brings his projects in on time and cost effectively, and I would anticipate the same. This would be a great use for this 48 acres. It's next to Old Town, which is a really good subdivision, smaller, but I would have every degree of confidence of Mr. Turner building what he says he's going to do and be a great addition to the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else who's in favor of the project wish to speak?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Rick Wilson with Wilson Surveying Company. We're land surveyors and civil engineers. I'm also a partial owner in Westwood Phase 3, which is a subdivision off to the south and west of this site. I'm not the engineer or the surveyor for this project. I'm here to support Mr. Turner and his efforts. I have worked for him in the past. I'm not working for him on this project. But Republic needs this project. We need the step-up housing. We need the upscale housing. The lots are a little smaller than what we've done traditionally because the development costs are higher today than they've been for years and years and years. We're really struggling with getting larger lots that can be put on the market cost effectively. So he does a good job. He does what he says he'll do. So I would hope that you would support it. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Appreciate it. Is there anyone else that's in favor of the project that wishes to speak to us? Let's start with the folks that are not in favor of the project. Is there anyone not in favor of the project that wishes to say something to us?
Jeremy Rogels, live in right across from the potential development. I'm just wondering where the marketing came from this. We're trying to grow a community. Is there a top line or bottom line growth out of this? You want more people in there, or you want people that are going to bring more revenue to the town? I understand he's a businessman. He's trying to figure out how to maximize his dollar. There's a lot of people that are surrounding this area that wanted more space for their families so they could grow up in the way that they asked for, in the way that they paid for. And I'm wondering why so many people so per capita in that area is important. Is it really going to drive the revenue of Republic, or is it going to just drive more people? So I'm not in favor, and I have no interest of more people in that area than the areas surrounding it.
Said you live across the street?
Yes. And there's also concerns about, obviously, noise, and we get a river through there at least twice a spring. I don't know how that's gonna impact. I'm sure a civil engineer will be able to tell somebody it'll be fine. until the first rain.
Are you on some property? Do you have?
5 acres right across
5
from it.
acres.
That's right.
Thank you. Still on the folks that might be against the project, is there anyone that wishes to come forward and speak to us?
Let us speak together.
Yeah,
We're
my name,
both Hometown Care Estates. We both live there. I'm Carrie Ambrose. I also own a business here in Springfield Republic called Christopher's Imports, and this is my neighbor.
I'm Jason Smith. Been there 8 years, October.
Been there for about 6 years, and the appeal of that home was those 48 acres behind our house. Everywhere you go, you have a house right behind you, and it's the scenery you would not believe. Before you guys vote, go over there to Old Town Care and look behind us and see what we get to see every day. I don't want to see more houses. I don't want to have the issues with the plumbing or whatever you guys are trying to do over there. I just really wish you guys would think about what we have to say before you try to extend this to try to bring more homes into Republic. I know we're the little people compared to you guys, but I really am so against what you're getting ready to do over at Old Town Care.
Well, I do have a neighbor behind me. In fact, he's sitting right there, JR. He just bought the house not too long ago. So for me, it's not really the view, because I don't have the view that she has, but JR's a great neighbor. For me, I understand her concern. I mean, I can look across the road and see no houses, which is nice. Gives you a country feel, just real close to Springfield and the City of Republic. I work in Springfield, so it's 5 minutes later to the office, which is awesome. Very few lights. The amount of traffic on that road, Farm Road 170 right now, even with the amount of houses that's just out there, especially during the school district, or school, is it's pretty busy. The high school kids fly down that road. They run way over 40, I can promise you that. A few times you come out of that subdivision, you want to make sure you look real good, because if not, you'll get smashed. So definitely a huge concern of mine would be the traffic on that road. Put all these people in this subdivision, 6 homes per acre. I'm not a builder. It seems like a lot of homes in an acre, a small acre. I don't know. This gentleman says he's going to build homes the size that we have there now, that'll be between $200,000 and $300,000. I don't know. I mean, I have a hard time believing that, because even this guy just admitted that the building costs have went way up. And they have, I know that. I have a friend that's a builder. A home you could build back when our houses was built, compared to what you can build them for now, a whole lot different. The houses we have now, ask JR what he paid for his house. It was a lot more today than it was when that house was built. I bought mine in 2010. So to say that he's going to put a $200,000 to $300,000 house over there is fine, but it's not going to look like the one he put on the screen. That's all I say. And then having all the traffic come through our subdivision, which I don't know if that's the plan or not, but to direct all that traffic through that one little road is absolute asinine, in my opinion. All the people that everybody's going to have to pass, all them houses, I won't be one of them, but there's a lot of people sitting here that will. Pardon me? Oh, it is, okay. Well, I had no idea. That was part of the question I had. Is it going to be basically across the road from this gentleman here, or?
It's right behind Opportunity Avenue. So that's right behind my back porch will be a road for you.
Right here is what you're
So
talking
basically,
about.
it's still going to come off of 170 into the road that's right there right now is going to be the original road.
What you need to do is direct your attention to us and talk to us. This is a public hearing. You're trying to talk to us, and I don't want to have a dispute in the audience. We need to.
Absolutely.
You need to talk to us, because we're the ones that have to make the decision.
Another thing, if you start building houses in that subdivision, of 200,000 to 300,000, which he's saying, if he builds that kind of house, our houses are not, you can't buy them for, I mean, the building costs have went up. I think everybody would agree with that. From 10 years ago, the building costs have went way up. And I just don't think he's going to build those type of houses over there, which is in turn eventually going to bring all of our home values down.
For what it's worth, I need to make you understand, or have you understand, what we're doing is changing zoning, or at least looking at that as a proposition.
Right.
And that does not include costs or the type of house you put on it. The builder brought examples of the ones he intends to put on there. There's nothing in that change in zoning that requires, that where we require them to put a particular kind of house on a piece of property. There's rules with respect to the size of the, where you can put site the property, how big the lot has to be, and where the house or the whatever structure sits on the property. But we don't get into that here. And where the property exits, how the property is platted is a question that would be taken care of later, if and only if the property is rezoned. Is that clear to you? I'm not arguing for him or against him. I'm just trying to tell you how it sits. And you can talk to us about it being a $200,000, a $300,000, a $500,000, or a $10,000 house, and it doesn't enter into our equation here.
Well, I understand that, because
things like
you don't have if you had a home out there that you paid your hard-earned money for, you probably wouldn't.
I'm very sensitive to what neighbors think. Personally, I'm very sensitive. I've been on this commission for a long time. Very sensitive to what neighbors next door think about a project. But we also have to look at what has been the use plan in the city, which has been in effect for quite a while, and the criteria that the use plan puts into effect for us judging whether or not that property should be rezoned to a particular thing. There's R1M, there's R1H, and he's asking for R1H, which is not multifamily, it's just single-family residences. I recognize that creates up to maybe 6 houses per acre over, I think it was a 66 acre.
Well, that's what it says in the brochure you guys handed out, so that's where I got that information.
That
Otherwise,
may
I
or
wouldn't
may
have
not
had no idea, sir. I mean, this is all pretty much foreign language to me. I've never had to stand in front of a city council in my life.
Well, we're not the city council, we're a commission.
Okay, pardon me.
We're a commission. We live here just like you do. We get no pay to do this. We come here to listen and try and make the right decision for the city and the people that are involved in the redevelopment, in this case, a redevelopment.
Yeah.
The subdivision you guys live in came to us the same way, ag, and we voted to make it R1H.
So this being the first meeting, this is just for us to kind of go over what
But, I mean,
he's
there
maybe
wasn't
wanting to
there
do,
wasn't a
correct?
subdivision there when you guys
That's
built
true.
that, right?
That's
Right.
true.
So it was a little bit different.
This is the only
You didn't have a
public
bunch of
hearing
neighbors sitting here.
Okay,
on this issue.
That was
so
disagreeing.
on this one page that you handed out, it
You
says
guys moved into the
also
subdivision.
he could build golf courses or country clubs. So if you guys were to vote that he could do the houses and he changes his mind, he can build anything else that's on that paper.
Correct.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Correct.
Churches,
That's correct.
golf courses.
And that same list, just to be clear, that same list is standard for all of our single-family residential zoning districts. The only thing that's different between them is the density, how big the lots have to be in essence.
So the next meeting on the 18th, we will not be able to attend?
No, the process will be, we have a public hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission. They hear everything and conclude as to, based on your testimony and everything in the exhibits that are presented to them, then they vote to make a recommendation to the city council. They don't actually nothing gets approved here tonight. The city council will have a first reading of an ordinance to approve the rezone on the 19th, Tuesday evening. 2 weeks after that, they will have a second reading of that ordinance, and it's at that second reading that they will actually vote on whether to approve or not approve the ordinance to rezone the property.
Okay. I just hope that we could have came up here and just talked to you guys and expressed our concerns. I love being able to look at wildlife out my back porch. I know you guys think this is going to be good and grow the city. There are a lot of other places to build besides that 48.5 acres. And if he decides to do houses and 2 weeks later he changes his mind, that means I could be right out my back porch and I could be looking at whatever he decides to build. And I really don't think that's the right thing to do to the rest of us that are living there on Opportunity or Vintage than Old Town Care. We are in a state. It is safe. You can walk. You can have your kids there, your dogs there. We have a 0 crime rate, and I would like it to stay that way. So I appreciate you listening, and I hope that you will vote with us on that and keep that just beautiful acre and farm life.
Did you both sign in?
Yeah, I signed it. I appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
All right, good.
Does anyone else who is opposed to the project wish to come and speak?
My name is Stan Osterhage. I live on Opportunity, so I got a nice view of the farm, what we're talking about. I just want to reiterate what they say. But my biggest concern is the traffic. To get on 60 it's as atrocious now, and then going down a Republic Road is so dangerous now with the way that's designed. If you're adding any more traffic, it's going to be bad. And I noticed sitting in there says there's no floodplain in there, but every time there's low rain, the road washes out, and that's with farmland absorbing the rain. So that's all I really want to say.
Thank you. Anyone else opposed to the project that wishes to speak to us?
My name is Chris Boyce. I live in Old Town at Kerr Place 2. I'm on the actual far west side on Vintage. So this doesn't greatly affect me as much as it does the neighbors of mine on Opportunity. However, I moved in 8 years ago. I'm one of the original people that are still living there from that time. I moved in knowing that expansion from our neighborhood was going to happen. I mean, the adjacent roads that dead end to woods and field is a dead giveaway, and that's not, not a problem. My concern is that if you go ahead and grant the R1H, you guys may or may not approve a development 1, 2, 5 years from now that they ask for, but who's to say that they won't? You have $500,000 estates to the north of that property, if not greater, depending on personal value. It'll be detrimental to those homeowners, let alone if you do get into a situation where it does go high density, the property values are not as big as what are being presented right now, and the sizes of the homes are not as big as what is presented right now. You work yourself into an issue of a rental problem, constant turnover. Not that there's anything wrong with renting. I don't have a problem with that, so long as you get the right people in at the right time, at the right dollar amount. You drive the homeowner essence, just without the responsibility. That's my greatest concern. I know it can happen anywhere, but as long as you guys take that into consideration, I would greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to us opposed to the project? We would have listened to you from your seat.
Hello, my name is Wayne Hike Jr., and I would like to voice concern with the traffic. If you're looking at excess of 100 lots out there on that little farm road, that's just not going to work with traffic. So where there would need to be something done with that farm road, I would assume that maybe that's on down the road. I just wanted to go on the record and explain that, that is already a higher traffic situation than I feel comfortable with on a farm road, much less adding 300 to 500 people next door. So I would just express concern over the traffic concerns on that farm road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Chris Ambrose, Carrie's husband. We live on Opportunity. And as with everybody else, I'm concerned with traffic too, and also the watershed problem. I don't know where all that water is going to go with the system that's there now. Like he said, it almost washes the road out every time it rains more than an inch or two. But another thing that concerns me is it kind of scares me that he's shooting for the high density residential zoning, and I don't know really what it was talking about on the back of that piece of paper that I was reading, but it also mentioned the possibility of an apartment unit with 50 units. Was I reading that wrong, or? Yeah? Okay. But anyways, it would make, like him, I expected there to be houses built behind us. That's not a surprise, but I would like for it to be zoned the same as the other subdivision that's already there. I don't know.
This, to help you out, this zoning does not permit multifamily use.
Okay.
So
it actually said right on the back of that
single-family
paper.
residential.
Okay.
It's a house and a family living in it.
Right. And then another thing is that it goes along with the size of the lots, but like they were saying, I'm not concerned with a $200,000 or $300,000 house, but are they going to be 1,500 square feet, or are they going to be like ours, 2,500 square feet? I mean, that makes a difference to me.
To help you out, did you say you're on Opportunity?
Mm-hmm.
That's an R1M, I believe, which the size of the lot would be 9,000 square feet, and R1H is the size of the lot 7,000 square feet. So there's a 2,000 square foot difference on those lots. Okay. That doesn't mean that the lots are precisely measured out to be 7,000 square feet. It just means that's the minimum.
Yep, I'm just concerned, like everybody else, with it decreasing the value of our homes just because the comps around are going to, be less. And I was just hoping that you guys might consider maybe proposing to him that we do separate the zoning so that we guarantee that we do have those larger lots in the back section. You know what I mean? Just so that we know we're not going to have houses stacked on top of each other back there. 6 houses on an acre is a lot. But
we consider what comes before us. We don't drive that at this stage. It's a question of whether or not it meets the requirements for R1H. And I'm not advocating for anybody. I'm just trying to answer your question.
Yeah, and that's why I'm here. I'm just trying to understand
what happens after this, not in this meeting, at a later time, if the property comes into development. If the zoning's changed and the property comes into development, the builder will come to us with a plat, and we will look at the plat, and it is at that time we say, oh, okay, that's causing problems, or, oh, there's, it's checked out by an engineer, and they try and make sure that all the water issues are taken care of, that there's water retention, there's rules with respect to not allowing water from developed property move off of that property except to the extent that it would have before it was developed. So you try and take care of all those during that process. and we have to approve that plat.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Thanks for your time.
I mean, hopefully that will help. Anyone else wish to speak? Thank you for your comment.
My name is Don Plyer, and I live on Opportunity. In fact, I have the house that the road runs right beside that would run into that proposed subdivision. My concern is the infrastructure with the road that runs in front of that subdivision. The exits are really, you have one that goes across 60, and then you have two that go on the curve that go on a Republic Road. With the school traffic, sometimes getting out, you just jump across that and hope nobody hits you. And I would hate for there be such traffic that some high school kid or something gets hit someday and is injured. And so I just don't think the infrastructure of that area is going to support the additional houses.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
I do have one more question.
You may. You may.
Chris Boyce again, sorry. I've noticed that there's a traffic counter on 170. Does the commission have a threshold to meet or exceed that will not allow such a development to happen?
News to me.
That counter was actually placed there. We just got a new counter, and they decided Farmwood 170 was a good place to see if it worked.
Okay.
So, we didn't actually count anything, although Ransom just sort of described generally the development process. Prior to the approval of a preliminary plat, we would of course evaluate the traffic situation, and as a result of perhaps some counts that we do gather, or a traffic study performed by a traffic engineer, we might require additional improvements to the infrastructure in close proximity to the development, most likely at the intersections of those streets with Farmwood 170, to try to get vehicles out of the through traffic and into the neighborhood without slowing down the through traffic.
Understood.
So that's likely to happen between now and then, but no, we don't have...
Not prior to your decision?
Correct. We don't have any counts right now.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
And we put cameras there so you can't elevate the numbers.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Melissa Rogels, and we live directly across the street from the land. And so again, I would just like to express our concern about the heavy rain, because that land does flood, and so that's going to cause our land to flood more if that water is directed across the street to us. And then the noise of having 148 houses living basically in our front yard across the street from our yard. It'd be a lot noisier than having a quiet country living, and then the traffic, of course. So basically just regurgitating, but I did want to have my point heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I thought we'd get you up.
Usually. I haven't attended these meetings for a long time, so if I'm out of place, tell me so. This land connects to our land, and we farm. So we're about to drown in high density out there already. We know it's going to develop, but can't we develop in a more responsible way for the people who are already there, and stop putting all the high density on us? We live on Farm Road 174. At the west end of our road, we have apartments on the south side and duplexes. On the north side, it was 13 acres with 50 some odd duplexes on it. That was wet land. They hauled off the black dirt, hauled in red dirt and rocks, and put all of those duplexes on there. And then we have a high-density, low-cost housing behind that. Then we have Republic's drainage. It crosses the road, comes down behind our house. Our cattle can't get across it when it's so muddy to get to their water and feed. And this is all because of too much high density in a small area. So I would ask, we know it's going to develop. I know that once it's zoned, he can do whatever he wants to with it. You have no say in it whatsoever. Now is when you do have a say. And so if you would just approve it for medium density, great. But this high density is just too much in this small area. And like they say, we already have enough traffic. We don't need more added to it. So that's all I have to say is we know the nightmare that we're going to be living through when they start to develop, because we go through it on the south end of our property. And it's no fun. And those houses probably have more renters in them than actual owners living in them. And so that's what they turn into, and it doesn't help any neighborhood as far as the price of their property. So I just ask that you look at the entire area and see that we don't need any more high density. That's all I have to say.
What's your name, ma'am?
Appreciate your time.
Ma'am, what's your name?
Laureen Johnson, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? We take it from your chair if you want to stay, I'll tell you.
Wayne Ike Jr. again, and that was beautifully said, and I echo her comments exactly. I forgot to mention about the high density, medium density, but on behalf of myself on Vintage, that makes a lot more sense. The points that she was making is not just Old Town at Kerr Place, but all of the other housing in the immediate vicinity, which I think is really important to consider. So for everyone's sake in that whole area, I would strongly like to see not high density. We know it's going to develop, but to have it medium density. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Have we reached the bottom here?
Nope.
Nope. One more.
Chris Boyce, one last follow-up question. How long ago was the city's future land use map created?
2005.
2005. And were any of you members on that commission at the time?
I was.
Because I see here that it's identified as an area best used in low-density residential at that time, which I realize circumstances change. However, given the past two comments that you've heard, it's right there.
Just say,
it's okay.
That's a great point you raised, but just to clarify, the land use plan uses different terminology than the zoning code does.
Okay.
So when the land use plan, it only describes residential in 3 general categories, where we have 5 or 6 zoning districts, but those 3 categories are low, moderate, and high in the land use plan. Low includes all of our R1 districts, including R1L, R1M, and R1H.
Okay.
So that this would actually be within what the land use plan calls a low density. When you get to the moderate, that's 0 lot line homes and 2-family homes. So those would be duplexes and patio homes. When you get to high, you're talking about
multifamily
apartments from potentially 9 units per acre all the way up to the max you can get in Republic is 24. So just as a point of clarity, because I get the terminology can be confusing.
Well, it is what it says, but I understand. The other thing that I'll ask you guys to take into consideration, my children go to Price Elementary. I realize that there are several elementary schools, but that is a Price zone district. That many more houses in a community with that many more potential students going into one funneled school could be a big detriment to the current administration that's in place, given what I've seen with my children going to school there. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Okay.
We'll close the public hearing and
We'll move along to the staff report. I'm actually going to sit down here so that I can see the screen a little bit better than I can at the podium. So to begin with, again, this is the rezoning request by Turner Residential Holdings from the currently zone designation of agricultural to high-density, single-family residential district. I'm going to skip through a couple of these and go straight to the maps. So this is the particular property. It's 48.5 acres. Here's Farm Road 170, it goes all the way to the east to the intersection of Republic out here, and then it connects to US Highway 60 right here in this area. Kerr Place is this area right here. A couple of the audience members were talking about the stub out on the street. There's one actually right here that would connect to a potential like residential subdivision here. There's also a stub out here. Our subdivision requirements do require that you stub out the streets on all 4 directions, so this would naturally connect to this entrance right here into Kerr Place. They would have their own dedicated entrance, potentially on Farm Road 170. So this is just the vicinity map. We'll move on to the future land use map. Again, here's the property. The beige or pale pink right here is all the designation of the low-density residential, which is what we're talking about. There is some medium density right here, and then there's some commercial. And then zoning designation, it's currently zoned ag. This piece right here is ag. This is the steam engine location, it's zone C2. And this Kerr Place, or Old Town of Kerr Place, is zoned R1M.
is that steam engine C3?
It's C2, general commercial. So we'll go back to just the text again. It's 48.5 acres. The flume designation again is the low density, and as Garrett described, the low density actually describes in the 2005 land use plan a designation of 1 to 6 dwelling units per acre. So within the low density residential flume designation, it's for single family only. Here I have described the 3 zoning districts. So these are the actual districts. We've got low density, medium density, high density. You can see low density is 1 to 4 dwelling units per acre. Medium density, which is the Old Town of Kerr Place, is 1 to 5 dwelling units per acre. And what the applicant is asking for under the high density is actually 1 to 6 dwelling units per acre. So we only have that 1 dwelling unit per acre difference between the medium density and high density. The other thing I want to point out for the actual designation, the minimum square footage, again, is only a very small difference. The minimum width and the minimum depth of the lots only differ by 10 feet. So the requested zoning, again, is the high-density, single-family residential. So the permitted uses, and these were included in your packet directly from the ordinance, are the single-family dwellings. We also allow those accessory structures, so pool houses, detached garages that are subordinate to the primary purpose or the primary dwelling, churches and public schools. These are all consistent with all of the R1 zoning districts. So within the R1 zoning district or the low density flume designation, these are all permitted uses within those designations. Again, the exhibits. We did take a couple pictures. So this one is actually, if you're looking west into Kerr Place, you can see Kerr Place here. There's one existing agricultural barn on the property. It's currently a cornfield. So this is looking towards the intersection of 60, which would be right over here. The view from the west on the same road. View to the south, so you can see quite a few trees here. This is the southern portion of Kerr Place, right there, and then there's kind of a line of trees to the agricultural properties to the south. And this is very close to the entrance of Kerr Place. So Kerr Place would be like right here. We're actually looking east on Farm Road 170. Here's that barn that we saw in the first couple of photos. So discussion and analysis. Again, the flume designation is that low-density, single-family residential district. It is in compliance with the flume designation because that high density is at 6 units or up to 6 units per acre, which is in compliance with that low-density flume designation. A couple of items that were identified in the 2005 land use plan in relationship to residential development. One of the goals is to provide cost-effective private development density to encourage higher density developments to reduce infrastructure costs to the developer and ultimately maintenance on those different types of infrastructure to the city. The objective is to use the land use plan to promote and guide residential development at these higher densities. Again, this particular proposal would be in compliance with that. And if you can read the bottom, it says one of the policies in the land use plan is to plan for higher density development, again to reduce those maintenance costs on behalf of the city. Eventually, when the subdivision is turned over to the city, it then becomes the responsibility of the city to maintain the water and sanitary sewer systems, the stormwater systems, and of course the roads. There were a couple other objectives identified in this plan. Another one was to diversify the Republic housing market, an objective to promote all types of residential development. The third goal is to improve the quality of all types of housing in the city with the objective to encourage development of high quality housing regardless of the size, type, and density of the housing being constructed. So compatibility with the surrounding land uses. You saw this on the maps that I provided earlier and also in the photos, but to the north we have the steam engine location. That is the general commercial or C2. There's also a couple of areas of just Greene County agricultural property. Those are the two particular uses. To the east, it's actually property in Greene County. It's currently being used for agricultural purposes. The same to the south. And then, of course, to the west, we have Old Town of Kerr Place, which is a medium-density single-family subdivision. Again, that medium density is going to be a minimum square footage of 9,000 square feet. So on to the discussion and analysis. The capacity to serve the potential development is an important factor in rezoning decisions. This particular parcel can be served by municipal water. There are 2 water mains in proximity to the site. There's that 8-inch stub on the street, so the street that's running to the east to this particular property from Kerr Place. And there's also a 10-inch water main which will be ultimately constructed to the east, parallel to West Farm Road 170. It'll also, if this property were to be rezoned and ultimately developed, it'll loop back through the system to the 8-inch at Kerr Place. It'll actually increase the water pressure to Kerr Place and make a loop. Our subdivision requirements do require that, but it's a benefit to all parties on those particular water mains. The municipal sewer, there's an 8-inch gravity sewer that runs generally west-east through the property. The applicant had alluded to this just briefly. There will be a natural separation between probably some of the higher density lots, the ones that are meeting that minimum of 7,000 square feet on the north side of this gravity main through here. Both the water and sewer, we do currently have capacity to serve this particular site at the density of this type of rezoning request. As far as transportation is concerned, it is currently accessible for an agricultural purpose, so there is an access point off of Farm Road 170. Farm Road 170 is a collector. The future development of the parcel will require review of new entrances, so potentially 2 entrances at a minimum, 1 new entrance to serve any type of subdivision. The impact of additional traffic on the existing transportation system will be studied during the preliminary plotting process. As Garrett had mentioned, our Public Works Department has acquired some new traffic counters. We did throw those out there this week just to start to figure those out, and potentially we'll be collecting some traffic data at that particular location. We do have both our Public Works Director and our City Engineer here to answer any very specific questions regarding the transportation network. So I will mention this, when they started collecting just the initial traffic data through trying to play with the system and getting it figured out, they did collect just a little bit of data from like a 20-hour period. It does appear from just that initial data collection that the road is definitely functioning at an acceptable level of service. I'm sorry? An acceptable level of service for a collector at that particular location. We did look at Farm Road 170 in comparison to Hines. The development that's occurred on both streets or both roads, the intersections at both locations, and it's evident that Farm Road 170, even at its current condition, has the capacity to serve additional traffic. So moving on to, I'm sorry?
How much additional traffic?
Well, we'll be able to identify our traffic, our city engineer and our Public Works Director. We'll be able to identify that when we collect some additional data and potentially have a traffic study done for a residential development. So if the applicant were to come back with a preliminary plat and start that process, if we don't have sufficient data to determine the actual level of service, we'll ask them to perform a traffic study as part of that preliminary plotting process. Moving on to the environmental review, we went over these. There are 2 identified sinkholes on the property. That's actually at the southeastern portion of the property. Ultimately, any actual development of the particular site, they will be required to provide for emergency vehicle access and fire protection, and then all of those additional elements of code compliance will be reviewed at the time of proposal development. So many of those things will be reviewed at the preliminary platting process and also the building permitting process. Continuing the discussion and analysis, the alternatives as presently zoned, basically you could have one single family home on a piece of agricultural property and continue to use the agricultural property for agricultural purposes. So that can continue forever. Of course, the agricultural intensity and density does not represent the highest or best use of the land from the perspective of urban growth and from the perspective of the 2005 land use plan, which has identified this particular parcel as an area of future low-density residential development, including the R1L, R1M, and R1H zoning districts. The extent to which proposed development creates nonconformities, again, the existing agricultural uses can continue until something else changes. So if a potential residential subdivision comes in for review and is approved, that's the point when the existing agricultural use would become non-conforming. general trend of development in the vicinity of the subject parcel. It's been a gradual development of existing agricultural properties into residential subdivisions. Back, 10 plus years ago, Old Town at Kerr Place was developed. The downturn in the economy probably prevented some of these additional properties that have been identified in the low density flume designations to actually prevent being developed at that time. But we are seeing a lot of those properties continuing to develop at this point. So trend is facilitated by the population growth of the city. We have created market conditions favorable to continued residential growth in areas identified by that flume designation. And lastly, for staff recommendation, we have found that the proposed zoning amendment is consistent with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan. Again, one of those items is that flume designation. It is consistent with the trend of development in the vicinity of the subject parcel, which is low density residential development. It's generally compatible with surrounding land uses, and we are able to adequately serve the property through the municipal facilities. So that's water, sanitary sewer, stormwater, and transportation networks. And as with all development of the subject parcel will require adherence to the city's adopted plans and ordinances. This is through the review, approval of major subdivision and preliminary platting, construction permits, which will review the actual water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure along with the roads that go into a subdivision, final platting, and then building permits for individual parcels. That concludes the staff presentation.
You covered the major thoroughfare plan on the site. I apologize if I was...
Yes, let's go back. So the major thoroughfare plan identifies this as a collector. So basically what it does is it collects traffic, and I think we heard this from the audience, all the way out here to Republic Road. It's probably used as a road to actually get into Springfield. So
I think you actually had it on the previous slide. Sorry, go back.
no.
And also, I'm sorry, the other one.
No, go ahead. Which one?
So, Farm Road 170 is designated as a collector. The major thoroughfare plan also includes a new collector to come through the site.
It's
north,
actually
south,
this
right there.
road right here. So potentially, if the subdivision were to develop, if we got through the rezoning stage and then got to the subdivision platting stage, they would be required to develop a potential road through the proximity of their site. So within the constraints of their site, we would ask them to construct a collector. And then potentially, if this property ever gets developed, they would do the same thing. So eventually we would have a secondary collector system, which has been identified by this major thoroughfare plan that the city has adopted.
Are we looking at one lot between that road and the existing subdivision? Or are we looking at, I mean, it looks pretty close to the existing subdivision.
Yeah, as far as this
Yes.
proposed collector, yeah, it doesn't necessarily need to be exactly at this location. The intent is just to provide a north-south collector. So potentially it could be over here. It doesn't have to be right there. I don't know that their plan will include it right there at that proximity. But a collector would not have lots directly dumping off into it. So you wouldn't have driveways for access off the collector. So it would be more of...
So it'd be back of a couple of houses.
Yeah, potentially it would be the back of a couple houses, yeah.
We good? All right.
My apologies to you, sir. I wasn't aware we got any good data from the scanners. Apparently,
I just didn't know what day that came from.
yeah, apparently we got a few hours of it. But to your point, Shana, collector, the idea is it carries local streets within a neighborhood will carry less than 1,500 cars per day, 1,500 vehicles per day. A collector, at least the way Republic classifies collectors, which I think is pretty standard for our region, is it can carry between 1,500 to 6,000 vehicles today. So examples throughout the community of collectors that function in that way would be Rosewood, Grace Street, Kansas Avenue, can't really think of any others off the top of my head. Certain portions, the southern portions of Oakwood, not the portion of Oakwood North lines, but southern portions of that would function in that same way and carry approximately that same volume of traffic.
So this would become a 30-mile.
Correct, yes.
Should be a good thing.
Questions? Observations?
Well, one potential problem I do really see with the outlets of the transportation there is over at M Highway or Republic Road. And I know, I'm not sure exactly if that intersection is within the city's criteria of who handles that, or, I mean, I realize MoDOT would be involved because it's a state highway. But I will tell you, we all know, anybody that's been there knows that that is really a pretty dangerous situation there. Is there any thoughts on doing anything about that?
Thoughts, yes. Money, no. So, you're right, that would be, that's sort of the intersection of two jurisdictions there, MoDOT and Greene County. And
So you're
the
talking about
city,
right here?
yeah, we have
right
roadway there too. So there's three jurisdictions that all sort of combine right there. The problem is the angles.
Yeah.
In too many intersections in close proximity. It needs to get fixed. Ultimately, in the long run, State Highway ZZ continues to go north, and probably a lot of that
Going straight there at the stoplight, they're going to go on it. Because I know he's talking about something going over the railroad tracks at one time, and I didn't know if they were going to use that road. Used to have a road across there, then they closed it years ago. If he's going to do an overpass there.
So that problem exists, and it needs to get fixed. It most likely gets fixed through capital investment by probably a combination of those three public entities.
Development like this will push that to get down. Or accidents.
But that is a dangerous situation there. But, I really don't have to do with the zoning, but that's just still my thoughts on it.
It's been a problem forever.
Yeah. Where does the existing city street end? Is it right there at the edge of the road?
Yeah, right here.
So
it's Greene County, and we may, I'm not kidding, we may have like half of it right there. And then it goes back into the county.
Yeah, when we annexed, this property was annexed in, we annexed the length of Farm Road 170 adjacent to the property. So that was all annexed into the city.
25 houses per acre, that's an R.
And we will have half over here,
Medium density.
the northern half of the road.
But you're saying in certain conditions, you believe the road can handle upwards of 6,000 cars a day?
Well, we don't have any specific,
Isn't that the definition of dangerous?
Up to,
Yeah, I know.
that would obviously be a pretty high functioning if it carried that much. And I don't know at what point this one
I think so.
does without, yeah. I don't know, did you say Andrew?
yes, both Andrew and Garrett are here.
It's not likely that, once you get up to the high end of those volumes, the city will have to come through the capital improvement project, I think, to serve that high end. Do you agree with that?
Yep. Yeah, it's unlikely that, depending on what you evaluate, that the level of service of that road drops from this development. So if you evaluate the road itself within the proximity of the development, it doesn't change the level of service. If you look at the intersections, it probably changes the level of service, so.
speed limit change, is that determined by development on 170?
I think in this case, and Andrew can correct me if I'm wrong, probably it's something we study over time, and then you adjust based on averages.
Right.
At least
So
for now.
most speed limits are set based on like an 85th percentile of the traveling traffic on a road. So what you don't want to do is set a speed that's too low because it's not enforceable and people don't follow it. So you study it, and then you look at things like stopping sight distance, accidents. There's a lot of things that play into that equation on how you set that speed. But we would evaluate all of that just like we would any other road.
At full development, the idea would be you'd be looking at 30 to 35 for a collector. Michael, yeah, not probably just as a result of this development. I don't think we would change the speed limit.
No, and we would really only have the authority to change the portion of that farm road that's in the city. So that creates a little bit of a conflict as well.
I have a question for the developer there. The difference of going, changing it to an R1M, which is the medium density, is, and I realize, listen, I was in construction trade for years, and I understand, the cost of different things like that, but what does that do to your, if that was the situation, what would that do to your plans?
It would, the design that we have for most of it is bigger than 9,000 square feet. So it's really more of a time thing more than anything. The design's, it's not going to affect the design because it's not designed for all those 7,000 square foot lots. And, there's only so many ways you can lay these lots out. So the idea of going back and changing it all, making it smaller, the roads kind of have to go where they go, and the topography comes into play with the houses you're going to build. So, financially, it wouldn't change anything for me because the layout is basically a whole bunch of 9,000 square foot plus lots, and there's a small section of 7,000 square foot lots in the front.
If I understood what you just said, you're saying that there's a high number of the lots, the way you're looking at it right now, and understand we can't say you have to do it this way. I'm just asking you what you're looking at. That a high number of those are 9,000 square foot. Did I hear you say that?
Yeah, there's 108 lots, so 40 of them are 7,000 plus square feet, and the rest of them are over 9,000 and 9,200 Gs.
And you have some parts of this piece of land that you can't use because of sinkholes.
Right. It would be probably where we put a pool or picnic area, that type of thing.
I didn't hear you.
Probably ends up being a pool or playground or something close to, in that area that we can't use.
This is the side that are
I might mention too, the application for the R1H does give the applicant the ability to create larger lots.
Sure.
So you have
Just
the
a
option of,
minimum. It's a
right, the
minimum of
minimum of
7,000,
7,000,
right.
but there's nothing to say that all lots will be 7,000, or even near that. But it just gives him that option to create some larger homes on smaller lots, which does tend to be the trend of single-family residential development at this particular moment. The trend in residential development is leaning towards larger homes on smaller parcels. People are wanting to keep the square footage of homes but have less actual yard and acreage to take care of.
Nobody likes to mow their yard by hand. What do we got?
an application to change the zoning classification of approximately 48.5 acres located at 7012 West Farm Road 170 from ag to high-density, single-family, R1H.
Do you hear a second? Any discussion on the motion? Call the roll.
Ken Sawyer.
Aye.
Jeff Ressler.
Aye.
George North.
Aye.
Tony Mitchell.
Aye.
Shane Grooms.
Nay.
Alan Dixon.
Aye.
Rance Mellis.
Aye. I deeply appreciate, and I know the commission does too, all of you coming here. Understand, again, I've said this twice now, I'll say it again, that there's a plating process where all of these little tweaks and everything else gets talked about, discussed, and we have to ultimately decide to recommend that or not. So we'll just go through it.
Yeah, there'll be a first reading of this rezone ordinance at the city council at their upcoming meeting next Tuesday evening. And like I mentioned before, 2 weeks later is when they will actually vote on the rezone ordinance itself.
I encourage you, and I've been doing this for over 20 years, I think, with this commission. I encourage you, if you have concerns, to try and talk with the builder, because you might find that he's very interested in trying to keep everybody around him satisfied. And while you may not be able to get agreement, talking is the best thing to do to try and see if you can work out your differences if you have any. Do I hear any other motions?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Karen.
We do have a comprehensive, I'll make it very quick, but a comprehensive plan update for the commission.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you again for coming.
That's an after-hours thing.
No, it's gonna be like 5 minutes.
Clear a room in 2 minutes.
Can I put my hat on?
Yes, you just need to sign that however you.
Can you, I mean, I'm reading this over and a couple of them, I'm not sure whether it's what we checked. Since this is new,
Yes.
can you go over it and explain if we're in favor, which one, so that I'm not. You checked them all, but I mean, is that right?
Yes.
I don't know.
So we are asking that you identify when you vote for approval or denial on a particular case, the elements in which you're voting for or against. So if you are denying it, we ask that you write out the reasons why you're denying. The reason why that's important is both the findings of fact, our report to you all is then given to the city council. They make, part of their decision is based off of the recommendation from the P&Z. So you need to be able to provide the elements for your decision for or against. So the findings of fact.
That's
yeah.
actually more important now than ever. If you recall, there used to be public hearings here and then another one a week later in front of the city council. That we no longer do that. So that makes this particular public hearing the only one, which makes it more important because council's only going to get the feedback about those facts that come through that process from you guys through these findings. So it makes it critical.
Did we mention to you that we have already sat and decided this, I mean individually, we didn't have a meeting, that if we're called as witnesses on these things, we have a witness fee of about $300 an hour.
Right. I agree.
You want to make it more?
And overtime.
So the elements of the
So can
findings
you
of
kind of
that.
go down each one, explain, give just a little clearer explanation of how we're looking at it? I mean,
Yes.
I read what
Yeah,
it says,
Bob,
but some of them I'm not absolutely sure what are.
So the actual items identified this are very similar in structure. Actually, the structure is a little bit different, but the elements are very similar to what it was before. It is laid out a little bit differently. So for rezoning decisions, the primary items are the ones that you are basing your decision off of. So consistency with the
So-
comprehensive plan.
So if we're in favor, we're gonna be checking that one.
Yes. And so there are two main points to the consistency with the comprehensive plan. It's the consistency with that future land use map designation and consistency with the stated goals, objectives, and policies identified in the comprehensive plan or the land use plan. Compatibility with surrounding land uses, capacity to serve potential development, so the water, sewer, stormwater, and streets, and our ability to serve them.
So if I just say, okay, and I don't disagree with the water and all that, but let's say I think there is some problems with the streets. I would just not check it, it doesn't mean.
Right, it would mean,
okay.
you would say, I don't agree that this complies with the transportation
Again,
plan.
I'm not so, of course, again, I'm more
Basically, this
concerned
is
on that.
what you presented.
Yes, so all of these elements are actually, if you refer back to the staff report, everything that's identified in the staff report and the presentation itself is categorized like this.
Okay.
So I've identified, even in my recommendations at the very end, here, consistency with the comprehensive plan, staff has identified why it's consistent with the comprehensive plan. We've identified why it's compatible with surrounding land uses. So we try to lay everything out so that when you're going through the report and going through our presentation, you can actually go through the findings of fact and agree or disagree with what staff has come up with. And then at the very end of the report or presentation, again, we've identified it's consistent with these different items. We've laid it out. Again, this is staff's determination after reviewing the actual proposal.
I have a question.
Yes.
Say it's a split vote, but the vote is to approve, or the vote's to deny, doesn't matter to me. But let's say approve, but I voted to deny. Do I put down down here, do I check denial? Or if I check approval, because that's actually what the sentence says, the recommendation was, do I put factors for denial that I thought were required to deny?
Yes, so if you choose to deny a proposal, then you would list out the requirements of your particular denial.
Along with not checking
Correct.
a bunch of this
The
stuff
check marks are actually just to help you facilitate as you're going through the staff report and or presentation of whether it's consistent with the objectives of a particular rezoning case. So hopefully this is helpful. If you have feedback on this, is a potential work in progress.
Let's work with it for a while. Just where we're going to have the issue is where we have a split vote, and if you vote to deny it, but the vote's ultimately to approve. Well, the vote's to deny, then we're all going to be, everybody except for the people that approved it, I guess they would say, I would approve, and you check all this and put nothing down here.
Yes. So if you choose to deny that you're voting, you have to make sure that you list the reasons for denial.
Do you maybe want to have another line here that says, my vote was?
If you think that would be more clear, I would be happy to
Well,
do that.
it would be, because this to me reads, right here, reads what the commission did, as opposed to what I individually did.
Yes, I can definitely do that. We'll make that change for July.
Any information, what we're trying to do here is gather information so you guys can make determinations. You have how we concluded, but you have to agree with it. Any information you gather on your own or anything that you get during the hearing itself, it's all fair game to play into your decision. You just want to pay careful attention that's actually fact. You don't want to
If you get
take
into
some
litigation, you're
conjecture,
going to end up
right.
having to come up with your reasons.
It's in your
and
best
explain
interest to
why.
You know, so if somebody says something at the podium, you know, you want to evaluate, and this way you can ask questions or ask us to, you know, you don't want to end up, you know, assigning your decision to something that turns out not necessarily to be factual, so.
Are there any other questions regarding the findings of fact? Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm going to move on to the comprehensive plan update, if that is okay. Okay. So the project team, again, we meet on a bi-weekly basis. We've been continuing to meet in the month of May to review that series of informatics and GIS maps that I spoke about earlier, and well, actually in May. These maps, again, once in draft form, will be shared with the consultant teams. The primary teams that we'll be sharing this with first are going to be Burns and Mack, the individuals or the teams that are working on the sewer master plan update. We'll also be sharing those with the gentlemen that are working on the water master plan and then the stormwater master plan. We've also finally acquired 2 licenses from Microsoft Project. What Project does, it's a type of scheduling software. Our consultant teams are actually using Microsoft Project, so we hope to be able to create a master schedule, hopefully with their assistance. Burns and Mack actually uses this particular software, so I'll be working with them to import their data into a master list that we can use internally. We'll also import in the Parks Department master schedule and then also the planning schedule. And I'll share that in a PDF form as soon as that's all put together. As far as planning updates, Chris Tabor and our department has been working on a series of suitability maps. So what the suitability maps are, they score each parcel in the city from a scale of 1 to 10 in various types of categories. Some are in relation to size of the particular parcel, environmental factors like floodplain running through the property, sinkholes on the property, proximity to major thoroughfares and major intersections is another area of criteria. We've looked at it as far as water suitability to the parcel, ability to serve through municipal sewer supply, transportation, and again, parcel size. Each map, if you can look at each map, has that designation of 1 to 10. They're very colorful maps. We then layered each of those maps onto each other and created a master suitability map. So our goal in doing that is to identify each parcel and whether it has the potential for development. So once those maps are layered on top of each other, they're actually scored again from a range of 1 to 10. And so we have a score for each particular parcel that will tell us whether that particular parcel is ripe for development. So does it have everything it needs? Does it have good transportation systems? Does it have access to water and sewer? Obviously, if it does, it gets a higher score because the potential for development is already there. I'll be sharing those maps at some point in the near future, probably in the next month or so. The Public Works updates, we did recently meet with the Burns and Mack team. The Public Works and Planning staff did that. They've almost completed their manhole surveys. They've completed right at 2,300. They have just a few left to go, which probably have been done in the last week since this last update. The water, they're continuing to come up with a field testing plan and hydraulic model construction, along with some water demand projections. We'll have some more information regarding the water side of the master plan in probably August for you. And as far as the stormwater update, the consultant is currently working with the city's MS4 permit in consultation with DNR and the city engineer. The Parks Department recently provided GRE with requested data. I went over this data last month. They had an inventory of existing facilities. This is all data that the Parks Department has provided to GRE in preparation for their master planning effort. They also provided them with a 2018 Parks and Recreation line item budget, a summary of all existing sales tax sources from now until 2028, and the department's current debt load. GRE has provided 2 sets of sample questions. The Parks Department will actually be doing their own questioning of a lot of people, or survey of people that are currently using the community facility and the parks facilities. A second meeting will be planned for July. That discussion will include initial assessments of existing parks, goals for the development of future parks, trail connectivity, and innovative ideas for parks and recreation development. And that project team meeting with GRE is scheduled for mid-July. Are there any questions regarding the comprehensive plan update?
I don't remember most of it,
You will by the end of this, because it will become very repetitive, and I may put together some sort of PowerPoint presentation. I know it's kind of hard to talk about maps and not actually see any type of maps, so we may do that on one of these meetings where we know the agenda is going to be very short.
all right. Again, just because I want to be accurate in what I'm doing. Back on these questions again, the 4th one down, the extent to which the proposed amendment creates nonconformities. What do you mean by that? I mean, I know what a nonconformity is. I mean, what if you agree? What do you check that or not? I mean, these guys are probably smarter than I am. They all know, but
We'll probably rephrase a couple of these to make it clear what you're checking and what you're not.
Okay.
In this case, and this one may not even stay on there, to be honest, but what you're evaluating here is if the rezone is going to cause a bunch of non-conformities, maybe a non-conforming structure or some non-conforming lots or something like that that are going to create problems in the future, that could potentially be a fact that you would weigh against. So if this doesn't create any concern for you, then I would check it in this.
okay, so if it doesn't create any concern, that's where you're checking it. Okay, right.
We don't really know until they plat it and all that kind of stuff.
In this case, there's really no nonconformities.
Just leave it
Someone
alone.
showed up at the hearing and said, hey, look, there's this, humongous sinkhole in the middle that they haven't accounted for, or whatever.
Okay.
I think you only really need 2 statements on here. That's the first one, consistent with the comprehensive plan. The other is compatibility with surrounding land uses.
That's it.
The rest of it's copacetic.
Right.
That would lessen the confusion.
They're not gonna hang me up in court on these things.
Before I try to eliminate the last item of business,
We're turning in the whole thing.
Oh, you want the
Karen's way one more time tonight. We did have a motion to adjourn, but I didn't get a second.
Second.
Yeah, we were
There's a
interrupted.
second.
We were interrupted by a
Call
5-minute
roll.
thing.
Ransom Ellis,
Aye.
Alan Dixon,
Aye.
Shane Grooms, Tony Mitchell, George North, Jeff Westbrook, Ken Sawyer.
Aye.
Can I talk to you a second? Sure. It's Public Works, right?
Yeah.
Were you digging a hole down there on Anderson Street today?
That was the
I knew this was a uh-oh.
I just wanted to know what's going on.